You're watching Extras from the Extension on Eagle Community Television. This show is brought to you by Carico Implement.
Hi, I'm Linda Beech, the Ellis County Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences, and this is Extras from Extension on Eagle Community TV. I think it's interesting to follow the food trends, to learn what's hot and what's not in the world of food. And one of the things that I'm seeing more frequently in food magazines and TV cooking shows, and even touted online, is the use of ancient grains in restaurant dishes and home recipes, and even in processed foods. I brought with me today a few packages of items that are now proudly proclaiming on their label that they include ancient grains. So what are these ancient grains? I found out some really interesting information. First of all, I found that there's no official definition for ancient grains. So really, food manufacturers can call about anything an ancient grain. And historically, probably all grain should be considered ancient grains because grain's been a food for man from the beginning of time. But the Whole Grains Foods Council does loosely define ancient grains as grains that have been largely unchanged over the last several hundred years. So that might include some heirloom varieties of grains we're familiar with. Heirloom varieties like blue corn and black barley and red rice. Yeah, they have those kinds of things. Other grains might be considered ancient grains if they've been eaten in other parts of the world but are relatively still unfamiliar here in the West. That might be like sorghum and millet that they eat in Africa. Farro, which is served in parts of Italy, or even quinoa, which comes from South America. I've got a bag of that here as well. Other less common grains might also be called ancient grains, and that's things like teff and spelt and kamut and einkorn and amaranth and all of those kinds of grains that are really quite unfamiliar to us here. Even less common grains that we've heard of, like buckwheat and wild rice, might be considered ancient grains. It's interesting to learn, though, that modern wheat would not be labeled as an ancient grain because all of the developments in new varieties of wheat that have happened over the years move that into more of a modern grain category rather than an ancient grain. Well, ancient grains might be popular because they have got some great nutritional benefits. And one of the first things to think about is that they are often eaten in their whole grain form. I brought my poster of a kernel of wheat today to show what this means when I'm talking about a whole grain. That means that the entire kernel of the grain is consumed. Includes the bran layer on the outer coating of the kernel, the germ layer, the starchy interior of the grain. All of that is eaten together at the same time. Now this might be in ground form, maybe rolled into flakes, cracked into chunky, crunchy nuggets that are used, but all grains can be really healthful when they're eaten in the whole grain form. And that's a point I think that's worth making, is that whole grains give us some great nutrition, but health doesn't have to equal exotic. For example, I brought a collection of foods that are whole grain products, and these are common, inexpensive foods that you can find in the grocery store. So if you're wanting to include more whole grains, you don't have to pay a premium price for an exotic ancient grain when you've got brown rice, whole wheat, 100% oats that are in oatmeal and cereals. Just read on the label and make sure it says whole in front of the grain name, and you know you're getting that whole grain nutrition. Well, besides nutrition, there may be some other reasons that folks like to choose these ancient grains, and one of those might be environmental factors that could be perhaps beneficial from eating these kinds of grains. When they're grown in their native area, they may take less fertilizer or may need less pesticides, less irrigation. So it might be an environmentally friendly way to enjoy eating grains. Another reason that folks may be looking toward ancient grains is thinking that they're going to avoid GMOs and some of the modern developments in foods. Well, let me just put to rest the notion that about GMOs, because there are no GMO wheat varieties in America. So you can eat whole wheat and know that you are getting a non-GMO or a GMO-free product as well. Well, some of these ancient grains do have a little nutritional boost that I think is worth mentioning. Quinoa has outstanding protein content, so that's worth considering. The grain called teff is evidently high in calcium. Barley has great soluble fiber, which helps to control blood cholesterol and blood sugar levels. So eating whole grains can have lots of nutritional benefits. But remember, you don't have to pay a premium to enjoy those whole grain benefits. You can find those in just the regular grocery store shelves. Well, if you're interested in taking advantage of whole grains as we move into the holiday season, I wanted to mention that we do have the latest copy of the Kansas Wheat Commission recipe booklet now available at the Ellis County Extension Office. And it's got lots of great recipes in here. They're winners from the most recent National Festival of Breads. And there are lots of recipes that include whole grain products that you can serve to your family, special occasion foods for the holidays. So if you're interested in that and you want to bake with some whole grains, come and request this recipe booklet. It's got some really great ideas in it. Well, thank you for joining me today as we've learned more about ancient grains. And they do have some unique benefits. They also have common counterparts that can give us nutritional benefits as well. So you can decide. If you want to jump on that food trend and try those ancient grains, go ahead. But you don't have to be eating exotic ancient grains to be able to get whole grain good nutrition. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Linda Beech, the Ellis County Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences, and this has been Extras from Extension on Eagle Community TV.
You're watching Extras from the Extension on Eagle Community Television. This show is brought to you by Carico Implement.
Fall is here, and it's a great time to come out and visit Carico Implement in Hayes for all of your fall lawn care needs. We stock and sell a full line of John Deere riding lawn equipment, along with Honda walk-behind mowers and generators. We also offer a full lineup of Steel outdoor power products. If your project requires even more muscle, come check out the lineup of John Deere compacts, tractors, and skid loaders. And don't forget, we have the parts and services to keep you up and running for whatever your fall lawn care needs are. So come and visit Carico Implement for a solution that fits.